When we were talking last time, I remember you said a lot about how through the last 10 to 20 years of you being in TCGs, you've never seen a game like Flesh and Blood where you thought, man, this thing could actually work, right?
Hmm.
Like
Yeah,
what
that is basically what I summed it up. Now, I want to put that in context. We were talking specifically products, not as much as gameplay,
mm,
right? But I do agree. I think that the company LSS that's piloting Flesh and Blood, and I think that the Flesh and Blood as a product is, if anybody can do it, I think they can. Let's put it that way, right?
yeah, I feel
So.
you, man, because they're just firing on so many different cylinders, doing a bunch of different stuff. And I kind of want to learn a little bit more about you, man. So your channel name is Dice Commando, right? Like, where
Yep.
does that originate from? I like hearing that. And where did you start with your channel and everything?
Yeah, we started doing Star Wars Destiny gameplay, and that was a card and dice based game. And I don't remember exactly where the commando part came from it, but that's our local. That was our local play group, was the Suburban Dice Commandos, because we were out in West Portland,
Hmm.
so in the suburbs, suburbia. So that's kind of where it came from. And there was the whole, wasn't there a Hulk movie? It's like Suburban Commando or something, and I think that's where it all came from. But yeah, so we do gameplay, and as we're been doing it for like 3 and change years now. So we're getting do Flesh and Blood, cover a little bit of Star Wars Legion. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. And did Star Wars Destiny start out 3 years ago or something? Because I've been looking into it a little bit recently. It feels like like a Flesh and Blood in a way. You know, each
Hmm.
person gets an action and they go back and forth and they can do various different things. So did it start out three years ago?
No, I was what, December of 2019 maybe? Is
Oh
that right?
wow.
That actually, no, that's not far enough. Maybe 2016. So, and it's been officially dead, meaning the company FFG, the company that made it, they've stopped making it like a year and a half ago officially. So we've been carrying on in the community through fan base sets and stuff like that. So it's a very, very good game. It's also a very easy to learn game,
Mm.
and it's like easy entry level, plus it's Star Wars property. So it's pretty good entry level game for gamers. It is not on the same level of complication as Flesh and Blood, for
Yeah.
sure. So.
And it definitely seems like an easy to learn but hard to master. Like I remember this one competition I was looking at. There was this guy who built a deck around this one card where he would use it and it said draw up to your hand size. So it's cool where
Mhm.
he made a deck based on all these like really cheap cost cards. So he could just spend all those cards and then use that at the end of his turn and then just use tons of more and get a
Mhm.
lot of value. And I really liked how, they go back and forth and it definitely felt like a battle was going on. It wasn't some thing where you ramp up some infinite loop or gear up some craziness and then you're out of control. It's a game where it goes back and forth and there's always a way to get back into it. But what was the downfall of Star Wars Destiny?
Largely, it was a bad product. One of the things that I mean, it was the company's first crack at a collectible card game where you actually had to, crack booster packs.
Hmm.
And it probably really should have been like a living card game, to be honest. Like it probably, would have been better sold that way. And then where they really screwed the pooch was, most people I know, like the crazy guy in our group who was like really into it would buy a case of 4 boxes. Like that was like the crazy guy. Most of us bought two
Oh wow.
boxes. And if you compare that to most other CCGs out there, I mean, that's peanuts,
Well, how big
right?
were the boxes too? Because each pack has a dice. It looks so
Yeah.
funny. But I mean,
So
I like
they're
the dice mechanic. It's cool.
Yeah, about that big. There's 36 packs in there, 5 cards per pack, which sounds ridiculous, but there was also a die in there, and they had a different rarity system, obviously, than most other games.
Hmm.
But I think that was their downfall, and that's what I think Flesh and Blood's doing really well, specifically with the rarity system and having these chase cards, and like none of us wants to like have to go buy a $10,000 card or something. I'm not saying that, but the fact that they have these uber rarity cards that make people go buy 20 cases, which actually ends up then helping everybody else out, at least in theory, because it gets more commons and rares into the market, right?
Oh, for sure.
It's and I mean, we've talked about that from time to time with my buddies. Like, if there was an uber rare foil Darth Vader, like you can't tell me somebody wouldn't have spent millions of dollars to buy that if they had to,
Oh,
right?
for
I mean,
sure.
yeah.
Especially if they put so much time and effort into the game, they definitely want to pay like 10x for getting that flashy card, even though they could have a functionally same card, that's just a, normal card, not flashy.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think that did it suffer from that fact where they kept having to print? I think you said something about the designer of the game left, or maybe I was talking to someone like that, and they kept printing cards that were like a little bit more powerful, and that's something I'm kind of worried about Flesh and Blood a little bit.
Hmm.
When you don't have a set rotation, you're gonna run into the trouble of printing a card that's too overpowered, and then maybe you have to ban it, and then maybe you make too powerful cards in the future, or there's just synergies that are like way too powerful in the future. Was that kind of its downfall too, or maybe I heard that from someone else?
I mean, I think that's completely accurate. I mean, power with all of these games, and I don't want to blame Star Wars Destiny for this uniquely. There's a
Oh
lot of
no.
games who have problems with power creep,
Yeah,
right? And there's a lot of different types of power creep, and I'll do another shameless plug. I've actually got a couple of videos out
please,
there in
man.
the ether about power creep. But there's really only two ways to continue, especially there's two ways to continue to grow your game in a non-rotating format, which is what Flesh and Blood is.
Hmm.
And that's to either continue to expand wide-wise, which is like kind of what they're doing at least for now, right? Adding
Hmm.
more heroes, adding more classes, adding different, so you want to keep getting the new stuff.
Yep.
Or you just creep it up and then the old stuff becomes worthless, so you don't need to rotate it out because it's not playable anymore.
Yeah.
And there's varying success with those models. I mean, I still think Magic probably manages their card pool better than anybody else out there, which is probably why they're where they are. I know there's a lot of people throwing drinks at the screen at me right now for saying that, but I mean, comparatively, I think they still do the best job.
Yeah, I haven't
Um,
been into Magic for a little bit, so I can't really say anything too much of that. But the whole thing where you vary up your power creep, that thing scares me. Because if you heard of
mhm.
this game, Vanguard, right? I think they went belly up. But what was crazy to me, man, is I went to a tournament recently for Flesh and Blood, and there was literally there was 8 people playing Flesh and Blood. There were 45 people playing Vanguard because apparently they rebooted the game and they said, okay, scrap all those old cards. Those don't mean anything. This is a smaller set. And apparently, what happened is in Vanguard, they had a very similar thing to Flesh and Blood, where they had like 25 different like talents, right? Instead of light and shadows, they had like 25 of them. And apparently, it just made it so like if the next set didn't have your type of talent, you just didn't buy the product because you couldn't get cards for the set you already had. But I thought it was interesting there too. It's where they had a non-rotating thing, and then they ran into that problem. I mean, I
Mhm.
think with Flesh and Blood, and I'd like to hear your take on it. The only thing I see so far is the Majestics, the Majestic cards that block for 3 that are generic. I feel like those are just really powerful, and in the future, you could have like a card with like 40 of them. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I do wonder where creep's going to go. I mean, I think I think we already saw it a little bit. I mean, you kind of alluded to it with like Celestial Cataclysm, for example, right? Like,
Hmm.
um, Ranger used to have the highest cost curve or the most advantageous cost curve, right? Most of her arrows were 1 for 5, 0 for 4s, because there was difficulty in getting her to play her arrows. And
Yeah.
now you look at Light, and Light has 0 for 4s and 1 for 5s. And I think the hamper is like, well, those are restricted to light heroes, but that's not really a restriction,
Mm.
right? So I do think we've already seen a little bit of creep there. Now, whether it's class specific creep, maybe that keeps it in check. I don't know. But I mean, I think they're already starting to set the precedent. And what your statement about the Majestic suddenly, the generic, sorry, suddenly blocking for 3 instead of 2, which kind of
Yeah.
usually mostly used to be the rule, is well observed.
Because
I
like
think it'll probably be a while before we go from a 3 to a 4 block, but it's eventually going to happen, probably, right?
Yeah, that would be scary. But I mean, like Command and Conquer is such a staple. I mean, if you look at the prices recently, they're going up to like $120 a card, which is insane. I don't blame it. It's a really good card. And then not only that, but you have Nourishing Emptiness. It's a big card that I think is a sleeper in the Blitz format. Because I mean, if you
Hmm.
draw it turn one, you're going to get one extra intelligence, like or intelligence for the next turn, which is insane. And you're going to chip damage, and if you draw at any other point of the game, it's a 3 block. It's a
Hmm.
perfect card. So why wouldn't you run like 2 of an each? So I'm just thinking like if they keep making these types of cards that block for 3 and do some really good ability, I think that they could in the future have decks where ton of red majestic cards that block for 3, and it could be used in any deck. But yeah, I
Well, and
guess
then
we'll have to
I'll
see.
actually one up you there, right? Because then the next step is, so let's say that you do reach, let's say 10 sets down the line, we hit what you said, where you can basically build a deck just out of generic Majestics.
Hmm.
At that point, it doesn't necessarily matter what you're playing, right? Like maybe you
Yeah,
play your hero and they've got a couple spec cards or whatever. But by and large, I think that hurts them too from a product sales standpoint, where you run into your Vanguard thing, which is, and there's not anything I need in this set. I guess I just won't buy it.
yeah,
And then they're not making money, right? So they then the next set they either overcreep again or go belly up. I mean, it's a tough situation in these non-rotating formats. I mean, you nailed it on the head.
yeah. And I have every faith in the game. Don't let I don't want
Mhm.
anyone to think that I don't have any faith in LSS. I definitely have faith, but when you see all these games in the past like have all these issues, it's good to learn from their from what they went amiss. But it's just going to be crazy, man. If you think of Blitz deck and you have a good amount of cards that are Command and Conqueror's price of like going from the $60 to $100 range, you're gonna have a deck that's like $2,000 to $3,000. But I'm sure there's gonna be reprint sets and all that stuff. So it's not too bad. But were there any other games that you saw in the past that you thought, hey, this actually looks good, other than Star Wars Destiny? Because I'll give you one. Like I saw the Richard Garfield one. The what was that one called? Keyforge.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I thought that had legs. Like I really liked how the decks were just, all together and you saw the stuff, but I guess it's still trucking along. It hasn't really gained too much momentum. Were there any ones that you thought had pretty good mechanics?
Yeah, there was. I mean, there was a game I played back in high school, and this was late. This was late '90s, right? So you need to
Hmm.
put it into game evolution standpoint reference. But it was called Seventh Sea, and it was pirates based. As there's an RPG tied with it, so there was a storyline as well. A lot of lore, kind of like Flesh and Blood. There was a story that went with it, and people could win tournaments and change the story based on who they were winning with and stuff like that.
That's
Was very
cool.
good, and they were also a non-rotating format game. So they did not rotate.
And it was a trading
And
card game and RPG?
yeah, I mean, and they weren't related. They were just in the same universe. So the
Hmm.
same company had an RPG, and they had the card game, and then you could influence, whatever people from both could influence. It's kind of like L5R, Legend of the Five Rings. They kind of did that too, where people who won various tournaments could, change the storyline or. And I've always enjoyed that type of aspect. But in terms of the mechanics of the game, it was also very similar to Star Wars Destiny, where it was a I go, you go, and then at the end of the turn we draw up.
Hmm.
So it was a tactical based instead of turn or action based instead of turn based. And but the main thing with that is I saw that product dying because I was in high school, I didn't have a ton of money,
Hmm.
and my deck, I think when like there's third or like maybe their seventh expansion came out, there was only one card out of the entire expansion I needed, and it was a common.
Oh
Right? Like
wow.
that's not how you sell boxes, right?
Yeah.
So that's the downside of having these non-rotating formats where and like maybe I don't think I said this, but they managed to create better than any game I've ever seen
Hmm.
ever. Right? It was well
It
managed.
was
They
just
had a
very
new
fair. Did they have
new
too many
hero.
sets or just like a small amount of sets?
I think they had 10 sets before they were done. I mean, it's pretty good, right? And every set there was two new captains, two new heroes that came out. And so there was diversity, but it was just, at some point you just didn't need to buy stuff anymore. Um, and that's not how you keep a company in business, right? So
Yeah. Well, it's a shame too. What do you think of the aspect too? Is people look at Flesh and Blood, right? And they're like, "Whoa, this booster box is $1,000, $2,000," and they think Legend Story Studios is doing good, but Legend Story Studios literally sold that to distro for what? $40 a box or $50 a box. They're not making much margins on the ultimate success of their game from just the product alone. I mean, how do you think that they make too much money? Is it just constantly making new sets? I mean, that's the only way I see that they're making, direct cash flow on a monthly basis.
yeah, I mean, and to be fair, we don't know how much product, do they sit on 5% of their product line and keep it in a storeroom? I mean, and which is that's completely fair if they do.
I think
We
it's
and we
completely
don't,
fair.
yeah, we don't know stuff like that, but I mean, yeah, even if you assume that every box, let's say they make $15 for every box they sell or something. I
Yeah,
don't know, right?
that's very reasonable. 10 to
Yeah,
15% or 10 to
because
$15. Yeah,
I think most stores have a purchase price of like 50-ish.
50ish. Yep.
Um, so then you assume the distributor's probably taken 10 of that. And then I mean, I don't know, right? But it's probably in that range, right? 10
Yeah.
to $15 per box,
Well, how
probably.
much does it cost to print on the paper,
Hmm.
and then also ship a brick from Belgium to the United States? It's probably not. $10 to $15 sounds reasonable to me per box.
Yeah, I mean, you still gotta pay your artists and stuff, right? But
Yep.
hopefully, if you manage your set size well, that goes down to pennies. And again, I'm not trying to financially, look at their thing, but to your question, I mean, I do think they make most of it just by selling. Now, we look at people like Team Covenant or Channel Fireball or these other places, and you're like, well, how do these guys get such good deals? And I think it's probably because they probably do some sort of guaranteed pre-order commit or something like that to help them fund capital. So, let's say that set 10 of Flesh and Blood doesn't sell as well. It's probably not Flesh and Blood on the hook for all of it. And then they would just drop their orders for, or drop their forecast for set 11. I mean, we're looking at this at a very macro level, right? But I don't know that Flesh and Blood is necessarily on the hook as bad if a set goes bad. They
Yeah.
just don't make as, it's not that they'll like go bankrupt. It's just that they don't make as much money. And then they say, okay, we need to make some hard decisions. And then they underprint the next set and then nobody can get it.
Yeah, because
And then
they
it
don't
goes
have the
up again or,
capital. Yeah,
right. So, um,
and then
but then
that's
they
the
sell
thing. It's
everything
like
out. So I don't know.
then people are pissed that it sells out. But the thing is, like, then
Right.
Legend Story Studios still doesn't get the money because, like, basically, in my mind, you have to find ulterior motives or ulterior, methods to get capital into your business other than just box sales. From what I see, I mean, I'm not in that industry whatsoever. But when you and I are crunching the numbers of 50ish, and then it's like you get less than that as profit, it's not too much in the grand scheme, especially with Welcome to Wrath and Arcane Rising. I mean, if you think of Welcome to Wrath is what is it, 16,666 boxes, or yeah. So if you add 0 to the end of that, that's only 160K for the entire set, which is like nothing. So and especially with a team of even 10 people, I mean that doesn't even cover salaries. So I think that your observation of maybe holding product back is a good thing, because if you're really slammed for your game and you think it's going to take off, it makes sense to hold some boxes
Hmm.
back, send it out into the market, increase demand for the product, and then make strategic arrangements with Channel Fireball and other people. I mean, what's interesting when you say that too is I remember when they announced the CFB content partnership, and then automatically Channel Fireball had like 100 first edition Welcome to Wrath booster boxes on eBay and 100 I think Arcane Rising. And it makes sense. I mean, I think it was a really good strategic thing at that time, and now in this standpoint of the calling events, we were seeing how this has matured and where they come into the picture with hosting these events. That's their side of it from
Hmm.
the payoff. What do you think though with the the thing I'm trying to grasp is like they're not a local game store. They are a big game store, but it ultimately doesn't help the small guys. Do you think the ends justify the means with them like hosting all these events? Because that's where that's why I think like was planned from the very start is what I'm thinking. I'm going
Yeah,
deep, man.
I have some pretty strong opinions on this that I know probably a lot of people won't like, but the thing is, so I want to throw it out there first, right? I do understand both sides of it, right? Like
Yeah.
one of the things that has bugged me in the past is um, certain outlets getting promo cards that weren't available anywhere else, and I'm like, well, you're supposedly supporting the LGS, but you're encouraging people to go buy from the online retailers by giving them promos.
Hmm.
But on the flip side, like my LGS can get a armory kit for like pennies on the dollar. I think they're only like $6 or something and like there's no way that LSS isn't losing money on those kits, right? So,
Oh, and the armory
you know,
kits.
on the armory
Oh
kits.
yeah, that's a
Yeah.
straight expense. It's like they're not
Right.
selling them, so that's just and
Well, my LGS says I think it costs them like $6 to get it from the distributor or something like that,
oh
right?
wow,
But probably that's all distributor fees. I don't
yeah.
know. But yeah, so that's the thing is like I said, I'm torn on it. It's like I think there's some really bad practice moves that have been made at least on face to where they're not helping the LGS as much as they claim they do. But on the other hand, they've got to sell product, and especially if these guys are like giving them working capital to get started,
Yeah.
then sure they've got a handshake there. Let me ask you real quick: do you know how like the prize money? Like, there's $1 million in prize money up for 2022. Where's that come from?
Yeah, dude, that's another question, It's like, then where does that even come from? Honestly, man, I think it's from all the entry fees in my mind because I had to pay like a ton of money through the CFB portal to well, no, every event it's like $100 each.
Mhm.
So, I think a portion of those ticket prices go into that prize pool. But other than that, maybe I haven't done the math, but I mean, maybe they're not even making that much money from those type of events to host it, but that's the only thing I can think of. Oh, didn't it say 2022 as well?
Yeah, yeah, no, I think the $1 million thing I think is 2022. I think that's a next year type of deal.
Mm.
Um, but still, like so that would mean that is Channel Fireball putting up the $1 million prize pool? Like, who gets boned if, let's say everybody gets pissed at Flesh and Blood and only two people show up to nationals, me and you, and we're fighting over $1 million. Like, they still said there was $1 million prize, right?
Yeah,
So like,
Bronson and
who gets
Andrew.
boned, right?
Or
Obviously if there's 20,000 people show up at 10,000 at $10 a pop, hey, we're looking good,
yeah.
right? But I mean, it's still math, right? But it's, you're looking a lot better than if that you and I are duking it out for $300 or $300,000 first prize or whatever it is. Like,
You bring up a
I just
good
I
point.
just
Was there
I
an
don't know how that
asterisk
works.
to it? Like, because, but I don't think there was an asterisk because you're right. Like, what happens if they say, hey, we're giving out $1 million next year and then nobody shows up to events? I mean, especially let's say there's like some new variant of that, the virus coming around or some other, volcano that explodes in the middle of the US covering, like if some other type of thing happens where people aren't playing games out in the world, like where does that money go if it's not being spent? Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And where does it come from initially, right?
Right.
Because
Yeah, I mean that's more where I am. Is like, who foots the bill? Is that coming from LSS just as promotional budget, assuming that they're going to sell enough boxes at $10 to $15 a pop to cover it? I That's a lot of boxes, right? I
that is a
mean,
ton of product. I mean, I can definitely see. I know for a fact that they have a angel investment type group from a while back, and I'm not sure if they are financing it more now that the game's so successful. But I do know that they have them in their pocket.
mhm.
Um, Other than that, what's cool I like is a lot of the people at LSS, own shares it seems in the company, but maybe there. But other than that, all I can think of is entry fees. I mean, $1 million if you have a you know I guess you need 10,000 people paying $100 each, right? And that's a million. So you need $10,000 or 10,000 people paying $100 each. I mean, that's pretty reasonable, but I don't know.
Yeah, but that's before your convention hall rentals and
Oh yeah,
like yeah,
fees
I
and all
know,
that
I
stuff.
think somebody was telling me, Travis from Fad Foundry, he was telling me that the booth at a booth at LVO, a vendor booth at LVO is 5 grand for the weekend. Right. So,
Jeez.
I mean, Channel Fireball knows what they're doing. And I highly suspect that the majority of this prize money is probably coming from Channel Fireball, right?
Yeah.
Assuming that they manage the events, but there's got to be some sort of handshake or something there where like, hey, we're promoting your game. If we get boned, you're covering. I assume. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. There's probably some deal that you're right there where it's like, hey, they're like Channel Fireball is kind of like the insurance agent for LSS in a way. It's like, hey, LSS can say $1 million because Channel Fireball is doing all this grunt work of hosting the events and all this stuff. And maybe to your point, like I'm thinking about it like a lottery ticket. When you buy these little scratch off, it says we're sending off like $2 million of prizes, right? But they have to get like maybe 10 to 20, like let's say $20 million of prize tickets, to
Hmm.
pay for all the tickets for the scratch offs, pays for $2 million prizes overall. But you know to your point, how big of a scale is it to go from 2021 where we're having these four calling events in and nationals in Florida? and then going to 2022 where you have Worlds, I guess, and I mean going through $1 million of prizes must be pretty big scale.
Yeah, and I'm sure
That's
that what they're, I mean, they're not dumb. Like, let's be
yeah,
very clear here, right? I'm sure that by dangling the big prize money hook for 2022, what they're trying to do is artificially, I mean, not artificially, but they're trying to ramp their 2021 numbers, which they can then use to justify their 2022 numbers, right? So it's like they're trying to create, I mean, that's what they're doing. They're trying to create hype,
yeah.
and more power to them. Um, anyway, it was just an interesting question. Like, I
I
don't know
think
where that money comes from,
don't they call
right?
it the angels in the outfield business strategy? If you build it, they will come.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
and I think that does work largely for gamers. I
yeah,
mean, largely, as long as you don't piss them off, I think that largely works.
yeah.
So,
But I think it's an excellent move. I mean, when you have all the other games out there, I don't think anyone can compare to like $1 million in prize support at this moment, right? I'm not
well,
too,
it's a nice big number.
yeah. And
No,
maybe some of that is in like prize support, like just booster boxes. So maybe they don't have to pay as much. Like they produce a booster box for $30, give it out to someone, and they say, "Oh, we gave $100 away." But even still, man, you're
sure.
right. It's a big number.
Yeah, I mean, I think isn't it 500, 300, and 200 or something like that? I don't I'm not going to bother to look it up, and
I
somebody
agree.
will tell us if we're wrong. No worries, but I mean, either way, we know there's $1 million prize pool, and that
Yep.
I think it's probably cash.
Oh, maybe. Yeah,
I
I'd
think
love
it's
to.
cash. Like, I don't think they could do that because then they're setting market rates and stuff, and like I don't think that's a thing you want to touch, right? Because like if you win $500,000 and they're like, "Here's your booster box," and you're like, "Well, this is not a $500,000 booster box." You're like, "Well, yes, it is." Like I don't think they can do that. So
Yeah,
I don't know from a legal standpoint. I'm not a lawyer,
me neither.
nor do
But
I
you
play
know
one
what
on TV.
is
But
interesting though is they announced this like maybe a month after the event signups. So maybe they saw the amount of people that are signed up so far and they're like, "Okay, well if we have these numbers this year, we can project next year we're going to get maybe double that and maybe that's how it goes." And I guess if people are paying cash to get into the event, then they just basically just give the cash back like the lottery kind of thing, but it is fascinating, man. That's a big fat number.
yeah, I mean, maybe it works. Maybe it is based on numbers, but my guess would be that it more likely had to do with them trying to capitalize on Magic's Pro Tour going away. And then it took probably time for them to get it organized and make contract agreements. And, I'm sure COVID didn't help because people probably didn't want to commit until they saw what that looked like. And
Yeah.
so I think probably it just took them longer than they wanted to. Yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit. Like, obviously, if they did Vegas and like two dudes signed up, then they're probably going to be like, "All right, pump the brakes on the million."
Yeah.
But um, yeah, I mean, it's probably both of. It's probably a little both, right? Like left hand feed the right hand type of deal. It's probably both. So
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean it's crazy how far the game has come so far. I mean, I think I heard James say in an interview that in 2019 or I think maybe in the beginning of 2020 they were considering just like putting everything on pause. And that must be some ballsy decision, you know. Do we commit the capital and keep chugging this machine forward off a cliff, that they see, or do you like hold back a little bit? I mean, I don't know. I would not want to be behind the reins of one of these companies, man. It seems crazy.
yeah, well, we saw what happened to Argent Saga when I mean, there's slightly different situations, but Argent Saga pumped the brakes and said, "All right, no more competitive play. Just buy our stuff," and nobody really did.
Really? I,
Um,
I haven't heard of this.
oh yeah, well, Argent Saga was it was bigger. It was part of the reason we didn't pick up Fab as fast at our store. Actually, Argent Saga was real big at our store. There was a company out of Ohio, I think, and they were. I mean, their cards were going for crazy amounts on TCG Player,
Oh wow.
and then they just kind of went away. They announced they were killing. They announced they were done in early summer last year or something like that. Um, but they just said, okay, they were very big on competitive play. It's the same type of model we have, at least from tournament type thing. They were very focused on the competitive player, And then when that went away, it just went away. Um, but Flesh and Blood, I think, not I think, Flesh and Blood clearly benefited with their rarity model. They clearly benefited from the with. I mean, let's be honest. In 2021 or late 2020, early 2021,
Hmm.
the collectibles market lost its collective mind. Right. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
so they benefited from that a lot, I think.
extremely well. And I mean, now it's great because I can tell you firsthand. I mean, just going to events now, I'm incentivized a lot to go to these events. I mean, if you get top 8 in Road to Nationals, your ass is getting a hero cold foil card that's worth $400 minimum. I mean, that's a pretty good incentive. And then top 32 gets another like cold foil aura card, I believe,
Hmm.
for Prism. I mean, I don't know how much that is. I think it's probably a little less, but I mean, it's just amazing how much, collectability feeds into this. And I talked to a guy, and I think he was from another TCG. Like he was mainly into I forgot the name, but he said he loves Flesh and Blood for this because his other game, the cards just didn't have value. So that when they had those as prize support, nobody really wanted to attend. I mean, what are your
Hmm.
thoughts on that? Like a lot of people complain about the investors in card games, but I think it's just it's the blood.
I like the way that, so I mean, we'll hit back to Argent Saga, right? I like
Yeah.
the way that Flesh and Blood does it because they make these super uber incredibly rare stuff, but they're not game unique,
Yes.
right? So when you win nationals, you don't have like the Uber Dragon or something, right?
Yeah.
And that's what
You have
Argent
like
Saga did
head
was
jab
you had to
blue.
go to these, yeah, or
Yeah.
whatever, right? Like you had to go to these tournaments, and you had, so if you got in the tournament, you got some unique promo that was only at that tournament, and then
Yeah.
you win it and you get something else, right? And um, so I think that what they're doing without changing the game,
Hmm.
if that makes sense, right? They're
Oh, it
not
makes
changing
perfect
how the game
sense.
plays.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody, like, you can still play with your Herald of Protection, but now you have your golden Herald of Protection or whatever.
Exactly.
And yeah,
Or your
so
what is it? Unlimited Welcome to Wrath Bravo hero card versus a promo cold foil one. You don't
right.
need it's a you don't have a mechanically unique card that's at an inflated price that is limiting people. It's beautiful, man. Yeah. Like
And there's a oh, go ahead.
oh no, you go.
I was going to say that there's a flip side to that, and that's what I've seen in games that do the you have to win to get a unique card type of deal.
Hmm.
Is it actually stops making collectors try to collect everything because they know it's not possible. So
Oh,
there's this weird thing, right? So, and I'm not saying
that's
that like
happened to
somebody out
me.
there is going to have every gold foil,
Yeah.
but your knowing that you can't complete your set makes you try less hard to get what you can complete,
Dude, that's so
if that
true.
makes sense,
That makes
right?
100% sense because in Flesh and Blood, there's this Fab promo, and that, like, I think the Cold Foil Heroes are a part of that. And I'm a set collector. I love collecting those types of sets where they have, like, Fab 01, Fab 02, Fab
Hmm.
03. But I look at these prices and I'm like, yeah, don't have 20 grand to buy all these cards, so I'm not even gonna try. But then they have this other one in Flesh and Blood called the LGS promos at the
Hmm.
bottom. Those I love collecting because they're like $5 to $10 each. But yeah, that's totally true. If something's too hard to collect, people don't do it, because it's
Hmm.
like, I can't collect the whole set, so why even try? But
Right.
what's interesting too is I got the Rudy kit for MetaZoo, right? And I was looking at this one card, is the Rudy card in particular. It seems like a mechanically unique card that only 1,000 are printed, and it's like $400 to $500. It's insane, but it's nice that Flesh and Blood has cards that are around that range. 400 to 500 cards that, or $400 that just aren't mechanically unique. It's
Hmm.
it's good to see. I really think that investors are like the blood, and then the players are the flesh of the game. You need both to really work.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm alone not bankrolling LGS, right? But there are people out there who are real close. So, um, yeah, I mean, you do need both, and I don't think they have to be mutually exclusive, and I don't think they have to cooperate either. Like, I think it's okay to be a collector and not play the game. I do think it's okay. Again, more beers getting thrown at the screen, but I think that's okay. Um, and I think it's okay to be a player who doesn't care if his cards are shiny or not, too, right? Um,
Exactly. Yeah, it's nice. I mean, it just pays for the hobby. I mean, We have a game store near us called Cloak and Blaster, and there's this guy Matt from the Fab Arsenal who judges there. And after every round, it's awesome. During like these pre-release events, he'll be saying, "Hey, I'm raffling off like three different things," and I just see like $50 promo go to this guy, a playmat go to someone else. I'm like, that $200 winner. It's beautiful, man. I don't know. I just think it's really great to get people in the stores and of course playing a great game, but it's nice when the hobby pays for itself. I would have to
Mhm.
say. But what are your plans in the future with gameplay and like are you trying to be competitive? I myself have been a little bit more competitive recently. It's been a lot of fun, but what are your kind of aspirations with the game?
I mean, my ultimate goal always in these type of games is to all right, I'm gonna say it.
Yeah,
Is to
yeah.
have fun, but that's not. I mean, that's there's more to it than that, right? So I talk a lot
People
about
lose sight of that though. That's a good
yeah, yeah.
answer.
I talk a lot on my channel about set your success criteria,
Hmm.
right? It's I don't have to go win every turn. Now I just happened to I did win both of my last armory tournaments, which was
Nice,
awesome.
man.
But like now when I go to the third week, am I gonna leave there bummed out when I don't win? Right. So that's what I say. It's like I like to set my success criteria on these of let's go, let's jam games. I'm gonna play the best I can. I'm gonna try and learn some new combos, whatever it may be. Um, and if I don't win, I don't win, right? And that's
Yeah.
why in terms of, it doesn't matter to me if I win worlds, right?
Yeah.
Um, because I probably didn't make friends along the way. I probably made some enemies along the way, right? In that case, right?
Yeah.
So, it was like, nope, you can't do that take back. Whereas, at my army, you're like, yeah, of course you can take that back. We know you meant to snapdragons or whatever it
Yeah.
may
We
be,
know
right?
you
No
wanted
big
to
deal, right?
shackle there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because, we're there to have fun, right? And that's not something I would do at a road to nationals or something, right? But
Oh,
I
yeah.
enjoy playing at my locals more than I do a high level tournament. If that makes, hopefully that's kind of an answer to your question.
That is
Hopefully.
definitely an answer to my question. Yeah, man. I've been. It's weird. I've gone through a weird transition. As at first, I just collected. I just like to collect cards and have stuff of value and kind of like just set collect and stuff. But this game is just so good. It's like crack. It's just every
Hmm.
time I play it, I just want more and more and more. And to your point, I mean, just going out there and having fun. I think people lose sight at that sometimes. Winning is a thing because it is a competitive game. Everyone wants to win. But I've learned, especially in my local scene, we've got some like crazy good players. I get my ass kicked like every weekend, but it's good because every weekend I get a little bit better, a little bit better. And I think that when people realize that, like if you got beat, you're probably learning stuff. So yeah, but it's all fun at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, there's obviously a mix to it. Like if I go, I've been in those ruts before, and I'm sure you have too, right? Where you go and you lose like 2 weeks in a row just straight out,
Yeah.
and you're like, God damn, this stinks or whatever, right? And I mean, it takes the wind out of you, but there's a lot of people out there because they're coming in because the game's getting more competitive. There's a lot of people out there that pride themselves on being the best at their LGS or whatever.
Mm,
And I think there's a lot of people who are having hard times with it right now because, let's say you were the early adopter, you were the dude at your store, right? Because it was like six people at your store. You were the guy who had all the cards, teaching everybody, you were the best. It's been 2 years, people are starting to come in, everybody's had time to catch up, close those gaps.
yep.
It's conceivable you're not going to win every armory tournament anymore, right? So like if you lose an armory tournament and you're bummed out about Flesh and Blood, I don't think that's a good headspace to be in. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, it's good to be humble and get your ass kicked a lot. Well, I mean, also, are you going to a lot of Road to National stuff? Like, I'm trying to get like two more in. I think.
I'm gonna try to go to two. The it I mean it'll see if it works or not. I've got a kid and other stuff going on in my life,
I
right?
feel you there, man.
Vegas is I'm 99.95% sure I'm not going to make it to Vegas. I was trying. I just don't think it's feasible. Um, so maybe I'll try one of the other ones. I've got some buddies down in Texas, so we'll see. Um, but Road to Nationals, I'm definitely going to go to one at least. So
Nice, man. Yeah, I'm very lucky that the Nationals is in Orlando, so I'm definitely going to that. I think I might go to Vegas, but I'm in the same boat as you, man. Like I've got life stuff, so I'm not sure. But
Mhm.
what do you think of the current meta out there, and who what hero are you playing? How are you like tweaking your hero a bit to conform to the meta?
So I've been the last two I won, I crushed with Dory.
Nice.
I don't know why I call her Dory. I've always called her Thea. That's what everybody called her, Thea. And then all of a sudden she's been Dory for like the last couple months. But
It's Thea in the
Dorinthia,
lore
so
book.
it's Dory in the lore
Or
book.
no, it is Thea in the lore
It is.
book. They
Yeah,
say
that's what
Thea
I
a lot.
thought, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, but so I've been playing Dorinthia, and I've actually added Raging to my Blitz deck where you can't sideboard. I've added Raging Onslaught in my old hit and run position for Prism, and that definitely won me first round last Friday. I'll tell you that.
What does Raging
Um,
Onslaught do again?
it's one of those crazy generics with a 3 block, but it's a yellow pitch
Oh
with
yeah.
6
Yeah.
attack and 3 block. So it does kind of screw up my Nourishing Emptiness play, which you also referred to, because I just
Mhm.
run one Nourishing Emptiness in that deck because usually you don't run attack actions. But last week I called an audible. I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to run into Prism tonight, so like I threw some in there and it won me round one for sure.
That's awesome
So
because you could break other Prism stuff in the mirror.
no, because I was Dorinthia.
Oh, you were Dorinthia. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
nice. That is clutch.
But you should if you're running Prism, you should also run that card because it's yellow. So you should definitely also run that card.
Yeah, it seems like a perfect tech card. Do you play more a beatdown Dorinthia, or are you? I see that there's like two different styles. It seems like one is more of a more aggressive Dorinthia, where you're just trying to get over their defense
Hmm.
like every single turn and get your stacks. And then there's a more like defensive, more of like I'm gonna just be consistent.
Yeah, I call it front pump, and it is basically that. It's basically using, or it's basically your second thing that you said.
Oh yeah, just
I will take a.
consistency.
I mean, I'm playing Iron Song Determination because of course I am, right?
Oh yeah,
So I'll put a counter on if I can, but generally I'm trying to just like all Dauntless into a Warrior's Valor into a Dawnblade, and I'll
hmm
swing for 9. And if I can't swing again, oh well, right?
yeah,
So I mean, to be clear to those listening out there, I'm not trying to swing,
yeah.
but right, I'll take the damage where I can get it, just kind of pump over, because I like putting pressure on my opponents and making them make hard decisions. That's just my play style.
hmm
I don't like racing people. I like making them make hard decisions, right? So
Yeah, and if you can get cards out of their hand, then that's less opportunity that they have on their turn to do stuff with less card pool. I mean, what I think Dory has that's just absolutely amazing is Steel Blade Shunt off of a Tunic counter. I have seen that so many times, and it's amazing. It's like a at one single card advantage every three turns.
mhm.
Have you used that combo at all? It
So
is fire.
I don't own a tunic. I still run courage, which I very rarely use courage for its effect. I usually just 2 block and then 1 block it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't have the tunic. I'm just gonna have to go win my road to nationals and get the rainbow one. No big deal, right?
Exactly, and
No
then
big deal.
sell it and buy, like, 10. No.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the
I am hoping now that Crucible dropped. I'm hoping the Krunic will get to like in the $50 range where I can be more. It's not like I don't necessarily have the money. That's not the issue. It's just $150 for a card is a lot of money,
it
right?
is.
So
Yeah, or, win, one of the events and get a play mat and then sell it for, 150, and then I think the unlimited Welcome to Wrath ones are 150. But I can tell you, man, I've played it firsthand, and I feel like that's more the defensive build, where you're,
mhm.
like, blocking out a lot versus the aggressive where you're going that, Courage. And if you have Courage of Blade Hold, you wanna do that OTK build with Dory, and then with the Spring Tunic, it's more defensive because you can use it every 3 turns and do the Steel Blade Shunt. I mean, I really like the defensive aspect of her a lot now because of the chain matchup, man. Have you faced a lot of chains?
I have, and yeah, usually I just block like crazy. So I do
Yeah.
play. I play two oh it for in my Thea Blitz build. Well, my Thea build, I always run blue shunt
hmm
because she needs right 3 is her magic number. So I run 2 blue shunts, I run 2 fates, I run 2 sinks, and then everything else like blocks for 3 basically, right? So
Yeah.
it's not a bad deal. Plus, you have the fridge when you need it. So I generally just try to keep like there's been a lot of matches where I play chain
Mhm.
where I just keep one so I can just swing with Dawnblade.
Oh,
Right,
that
like
makes
all block,
sense.
block, block, swing Dawnblade, block, 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 swing Dawnblade.
And that's
And usually,
another
because I mean, I know
situation.
you've played him, it takes him a bit to ramp in.
Mhm.
So you can kind of maybe for like the first 1 or 2 turns, try and get him down in like that 6 to 8 health range, because a lot of times he'll still take it.
Mhm.
And once you can get him in that range, I think it's again you force him or her, you force them to make a hard decision, right?
Yeah.
Um, hard decisions, but
Well, for me as Bravo, man, I honestly, the games are so vanilla. Turn one, if they go first, they shackle and I block out. Turn two,
mhm,
when I get to attack, I make one attack. And then after that, they're just attacking me nonstop. And I'm just block, 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 block until they get to a point where it's the end of the game and they have no deck. And if I have health, then I win. If I don't have health, then I lose. But
mhm.
it's a weird situation, man. Because with all the other matchups, it's never like that. You know, you're always actively doing stuff with Chain. I feel like strategy is so important. Where with Bravo, especially for me, I just have to block out. And in my mindset, I'm like, okay, if I'm versing these types of people, I need health. So I'm running sigils now. I'm running like more of the blessings of deliverance. But it's cool how you can see the current meta and then develop strategies around like certain heroes that'll work for a lot of stuff. What are your thoughts on Sigil? Because I think Sigil's awesome.
Yeah, I made a video on Red Sigil.
Oh, you
No,
did?
Red Sigil is really good now. I mean, Red Sigil's always been good
Yep.
since Ira. Red Sigil became really good, right? Because you could effectively block 3 Kodachis with 1 Red Sigil,
Yeah.
right? So in your over the course of the game, it's worth 3 cards. Um, Red Sigil's great in the right deck. Obviously, Bravo I think does do it best. I think you're right. Um, so are you holding a card back generally still to club or to hammer? I mean,
Yeah.
or are you
Yeah.
just full blocking?
That's
You
what I'm
block
trying to
three, hold
do.
one.
I block three, hold one. And what's nice is if I'm going up against a Dorinthia that's trying to like go over the top, I'll usually try to like block with 3 cards in my hand or block at least six
Mm-hmm.
against the 3 attack, so it's hard to go over. Or what I'll do a lot too is if I have a red sigil in my hand, I know I'm kind of screwed. I'll block with 2 3s, right, and a 1 equipment to put it to 7. So then
Mm-hmm.
that forces a Dorinthia player to either use 2 cards to get over me, or just end the turn in Arsenal, and they usually do
Mm-hmm.
that. And then I have 1 blue and a sigil, so I can attack with my hammer and sigil. But what's
Nice.
really clutch with sigil, man, is the command and conquer turns. It is so good against command and conquer because you arsenal it, and then they'll attack with command and conquer, and you're just like, oh, I'm sigilling, so I only take 3 damage. It's so good. Have you ever done that?
So I haven't gotten to play Bravo much aside from just on TTS, so I haven't had that experience. Um, Josh has done it. Josh, the intern, my one of my buddies that comes on the channel a lot, he's done that to me plenty of times.
Oh yeah,
Um, Especially because you being Bravo, I love your Arsenal slot
yeah,
because every time something goes in the Arsenal, you have to be like, oh bleep, it's a pummel,
yeah,
right? You have to tell that self, right? So even if it's a sigil in there, you're still making me think you have a pummel.
exactly. And I'll
So
have like
yeah,
two floating at all times, and you're like, oh shoot, this might be a pummel. And especially,
yep,
man, has your buddy ever done a CNC into a pummel? Because I think that combo is like the most grossest combo ever.
yeah. That's it's like, oh, you can't play defend reacts. Screw you.
Yep.
There goes your hand.
Yeah.
I'll go again now. Yeah,
Yeah, your
that's
arsenal gets
dirty.
deleted and 1 card from hand. And if you've already blocked 2 cards for the CNC, then that's 3 cards out of your hand, 1 card out of your arsenal. It's a really good combo. And what's crazy about it too is, let's say you don't even have the pummel. You just have a red sigil and arsenal, and you attack with CNC one in hand. Your opponent can think, "Oh, he's going to pummel me. So I'm just going to block out 10." When in reality, you don't have it. You
Right.
bluff. I mean, there's a huge bluffing aspect to the game, I think, that haven't hasn't really been explored too much.
Yeah, and I think your hero does it best, right?
Yeah.
At least right now. Um, I mean, you could, I guess, you could make the same argument for Reinar, but Reinar's a little too YOLO for that, right? So,
Yeah.
like, Reinar's just going to go no matter what, right? So,
Oh yeah.
um,
He's gonna
no,
go off when
I
he goes off.
really, I really, really think, and we talked about this when we were on Outcast, but I'm a huge fan of Bravo right now. Huge
Oh yeah.
fan. I think he's in a great spot. But the numbers don't lie. So obviously, the road to national winners are what they are so far.
Yeah,
So
change is huge. I mean, I played a really good chain player in my last RTN, Evan, and man, he just when he gets going, I think this leads to another good topic is snag. This random majestic from Crucible War that nobody thought anything of, and then when now they have chain, now it's almost I think it's almost a guarantee. Have you ever used a snag against a chain? I definitely haven't. It's saved my
yeah,
ass.
but you're playing Bravo, and Snag is
Yeah.
great in Bravo, right? So
Oh, it's
yeah.
so good. Well, no, and I only put it in for Chain and possibly Bolton. Bolton not so
Hmm.
much, but definitely Chain because once they have that one turn with that one card, they can do like 30 damage a turn. It's nuts.
Oh, you're talking the Lumina combo or whatever.
Oh no, that's Bolton. I'm sorry. I should know the card name. Basically, Chain has this one where every non-attack action card he's played this turn, it gets +1. So
Oh,
they play like
oh, oh, oh.
8
I
non-attack
gotcha.
actions, and then they attack you twice with this card, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
And that's where you pump the
you're
snag
you're
out.
talking Rift Bind, right?
Riftbind, yes,
Yeah, yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, now I'm running 2 in Bravo because like I need to, because
Hmm.
once that Riftbind turn comes out, then I'll just, shut it down.
Yeah, you still take a ton of pings on it, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I take pings with all the other stuff, but with the rift binds, instead of coming in for like 8, they'll come in just for 2 or 3, which is
Hmm.
nice, but it's just nuts. Like like that card is so much more value now in this meta versus before it didn't really look good.
Hmm.
Are there any other cards you think that are sleepers now that might be good in the future? Maybe like Coax a Commotion or some random
Yeah, I
ones?
mean, if they end up doing like that in what is it, PVE has been advertised. If they end up doing PVE, I think Coax a Commotion is going to be well sought after. But I don't know that that'll necessarily drive very much of the singles prices.
Yeah.
I will take a card, and it's just it's a common or rare. I don't remember, but Zealous Belting. I think that card's way underplayed right now. Like that card's really good.
Is that the one that gives you go again?
Yeah, if you, I
Yeah.
mean, it's like perfect for you, right? You could run a red belting, and as long as there's something in your pitch zone with a greater attack, it has go again. Plus, it gets you to your magic 6 on your hammer.
That does look
And
sound really good.
Reinar can use it. Even Prism can use it, right? It's good in. I mean, it doesn't have a 6, so it's not good in the mirror, but it's not a phantasm.
Hmm.
And then it's a 2 drop. So so Prism can 2 drop a yellow on it, and then if she has auras out, go Zealous Belting for 4 or 5, and then ping, 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 ping. I think that card's way underplayed right now, but
How much does it cost?
2.
2. Wow, that's really
Yeah,
good. Because
yeah, it's perfect for you.
now that I'm thinking about it, if I have a righteous cleansing, I could attack with that, or pitch with the righteous cleansing, attack with that, and it gains go again. And then I'll just pitch a 3 cost card, and I could just swing for my hammer for 6. So that's a total of
Yep.
12 damage with 3 cards. And I don't know how you look at the game. I look at it as like whenever you have a card in your hand, that's 3 attack or 3
Hmm.
defense. So if I'm
Yep.
using 3 cards and I'm pushing out 12 damage, then I just net it up. It's the same thing with Blessings of Deliverance, which I think that card is so good. I run yellows now because literally you pitch a blue, play a red, Blessings, right? You draw a card, and then you play another blue. So you play 2 cards, right? Blessings and then a blue pitch, and then you're able to draw another blue pitch most of the time and then attack for 6. So you attack
Hmm.
for 6, heal for 3, hopefully. So that's 9 with 2 cards, which is, that's the extra 3. What are
Hmm.
your thoughts on that? How do you normally look at cards when you deck construct? That sounds
One
like a
one
fire
hundred percent.
card. Yeah.
I'm a 100% value player, right?
Yep.
I mean, we all know that Fab, and maybe to our power creep discussion, maybe this won't hold true forever, but we all know that 4 is a magic number in Flesh and Blood,
Hmm.
because that means if you have a 4 attack card, that means that I'm spending I'm spending one permanent card to make you either spend 2 cards or some other resource, whether it be health, armor, or something.
Mm.
So I'm very much a value player, just how you spoke about it, right? If
Yep.
I can do one and get 2 cards out, I don't necessarily care what happens because I netted something,
Hmm.
right? Now, hopefully you don't net more. I mean, that's what it's about, is like, is your net going to be more than my net? Maybe, and then you win. But I'm counting cards because, like you say, I assume you have 12 block in your hand. I
Hmm.
assume you're going to be coming in for 12 attack equivalent, or I mean, I think that's generally fair, probably on average, even counting your weapon. Um,
Oh,
I
what,
think.
12 block in your hand? I think it's pretty reasonable.
Yeah. So 12 block. Well, I'm just saying 12 block or 12 attack.
Mm.
It's probably about right. Maybe not exact, but I think it's right in there. So.
Yeah, and with Bravo, it's interesting. I feel like he's more geared towards blocking because, like, when you do attack with the bigger attacks, they're not as well. I guess they have the effects to it, but it doesn't go past that like 12 damage. Like Crippling Crush, it attacks for 11, but if you don't
Mhm.
block it, then you get really screwed. But I think his best range is blocking with 2 or 3 cards every turn, attacking with his hammer. Either I'm attacking you with 4 or attacking you with 6, which I think is a really easy type of hero to take on. I mean, what are
Mhm.
your thoughts on these the monarch heroes? Because I heard a bunch of different times people getting into the game, they saw the monarch heroes and they're like, man, this is I don't know what to do here. Like, do you think they're a little bit more complex?
Yeah, I for sure do. I mean, we still recommend when people pick it up, we still recommend they pick up. It's hard because the blitz decks are such an attractive product,
I know. Yeah,
but you really gotta like. I honestly believe Bravo's the best new player hero, and
totally
that
agree.
doesn't mean he's only for new players. I want to be very clear out there,
Oh, not at all.
right?
Easy to
But I
pick
think
up, hard
he's
to
the best
master.
one to pick up as a new player. And then Dorinthia is probably after that. I think Reinar is really, really hard for new players because you have to
Yeah.
manage that third card. And I still don't know how to do it. Like I still don't know how to Reinar paste for stuff, man.
Yeah.
But
Oh, yeah. He's kind of a weird apple, but I mean,
mhm.
Katsu is not bad too. Like in
Oh
Welcome to
yeah, that's
Wrath.
complete. Yeah, I think the Welcome to Wrath heroes are definitely where you start.
Yeah.
Or mechanologist. I know there's a lot of people. I think she's relatively straightforward. She requires a few more supers and stuff, so that's generally why. But they're not very expensive anymore. So I think you could argue Dash. I wouldn't recommend somebody pick up Azalea. I certainly wouldn't recommend they pick up
Oh, yeah.
Wizard.
Oh,
Um,
Wizard's on a whole different. Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, we're not being completely fair because I think that from a play at your armory standpoint, I think Prism's a pretty good entry point,
Yeah,
right?
Prism's not too bad. I mean, as
Yeah.
long as you understand the auras and I mean, I guess you just play them and then like it's not too bad. I agree. Out of all the Monarch heroes, because
Hmm.
Chain's kind of scary because you're milling yourself. Levia, even good players don't know how to play Levia.
Right. Yeah.
And then Bolton I think is really complex. Other people have an easy time. What are your thoughts on Bolton?
So Bolton's my guy. He's the one I did from. He's the one I focused in on. Not did. He's the one I focused in on from Monarch.
Mm,
Bolton's really. I have a lot of respect out there for the people doing very well with Bolton. I think I'm a good Bolton player, but the fact that he also has that I need a 3 card hand problem.
mm.
Right? He has to have a card that lets you charge, so that's 2, and then you have to have something to pay for it. Like he has to have 3 cards, or he kind of just sits there. Now, to be fair, I play the Raiden build, so you have to charge, otherwise you don't do jack.
Yeah.
But um, I don't really know how the axes work with him anyway. Um,
Well, I
but
think
it is kind of a go ahead.
people will use the sabers, I think, for the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
OTK Bolton, and it's
Yeah.
crazy with the 3 Lumina turn. I haven't seen that go off in person, but I've heard stories where it just does like 35, 40 damage in one turn. Sounds nuts.
Yeah, what's the is 34? I think it's 34 is the max, right? Because you charge or you zero, you charge, you snap dragons if they don't block it, and then you get +1, +1, +1.
Well, yeah, and
So
Lumina lets you
5.
attack like 3 extra times per weapon, right?
Oh,
But
it'd be 36.
yeah,
Assuming you get all the bonuses, it'd be 36, right?
oh, what's crazy is the sabers that you get +1 if they block with a certain card.
Right.
That +1 lasts for the end of the turn. So if they
Hmm.
block early, then they're really boned because then that adds +1 to the next 3 attacks. So the key against it apparently is you wait until they do their final like 3 attacks and then you block those. Because if you
Hmm.
block it in the beginning, then then it gains an attack because you blocked it and it just stays on. It sounds like a nuts build, but the problem I think is the variance of getting it. But like what so you play the Raiden build, so you're just like doing a beat down?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm a kind of a value consistency guy, right? And if I can take flight into a battlefield blitz and swing for three all on a two pitch, I'm happy. But again, it's still a three card turn.
Yeah.
So I think Bolton, I mean, again, there's a lot of people out there who have done very well with him, but I think that he's going to be very hard to consistently. I think he could. I think somebody who's really good could probably go win a road to nationals with him. Well, I mean, and we saw it, right? Didn't somebody win it with Bolton? Oh no, that was Dorinthia axes. Sorry, um,
Oh no, somebody
but
did. The road to nationals that I went to, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago. This guy Jimmy, in our local group, he won it with Raiden Bolton, and I actually played
with
him, and
Raiden.
it was surprisingly consistent. I was surprised at
Hmm.
how much damage he could poke through because I was Bravo, so I was just blocking out a lot of stuff and trying to attack with my hammer, but I was only doing 4 damage, so he would just take it, or he would do steel blade shunt and just block it with the tunic counter. So he had that 3 card hand, like we were just talking about. So what was crazy about it is that whole thing with we were talking about value because I think he would take flight and take flight does what 4 damage.
It's 4-3-2. Yeah, four three
Yeah,
two.
and then he'd put one into the when is it soul, and then he'd attack with Raiden, which is 3. So I mean, he did this thing where he was pumping out like 12 damage a turn with like 3 cards in hand or something, or maybe a 4 card hand. It was a it was a good deck. I mean, another
Hmm.
big combo is Plunder Run into a Command and Conquer. That's used a lot, and that has so much value. Because what I think you do is when you're Bolton, you just give stuff go again until the command and conquer at the end of the turn with the plunder run. Because they usually block like one
I
or two
see.
times,
I
and then
see.
once the CNC with plunder, it's just done. And then they get to draw a card on top of that, and then
Right.
to just arsenal it, which is just it's just a beautiful combo.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's the issue I'm having with him is that I don't have any CNCs, I don't have any sexy cards, so maybe that's the issue. I mean, I've done very well with him. The problem I have with him is if you ever run out of gas,
Hmm.
you're kind of done,
Yeah,
right? Because you need to be the aggressor. Where I have to force Bronson to drop his hand because if Bronson comes back at me and I have to drop mine, I never catch up,
yeah.
right?
And I think the Bolton lists usually run just 60 cards because they're trying to just, go all gas and try to, beat you down in a short amount of time. Whereas Bravo, I try to run all 70. I mean, I'm just trying to, or, have as much blocking ability as I can because I know I'm going to be beat up a good amount of times. Bravo's the punching bag of the game in my
Hmm.
mind. I mean, I think he can be the aggressor, but so many people just do it so much better. Like, especially Chain and Bolton that build and any like Katsu aggro one that I think that strategy is really important. Whenever I look into gameplay, I'm like, okay, what is my strategy for this certain matchup? But yeah.
Yeah, I think the big thing, I mean, obviously, blocking ninja the right way is the right thing to do.
Hmm.
When you're playing Bolton, I highly advise you count, like, ask if you can look through their discard, right? Count how many charge cards they have left. Like, they're going to play 9 take flights. Actually, I've seen some builds out there that only play 6 take flights, but they're going to play 9 take flights and they're going to play 3 Vs. And then they're going to play probably 6 bolts and maybe 3 or 6 engulfings, right? So they're looking at about, whatever that added up to. It's like what, 24, maybe 27 charge cards.
Hmm.
And then remember, they'll go in their soul too. So you have to look there. But generally, if you can know, especially if you're playing a defensive deck like yours, you can know that they're out of charge cards. And then, especially if they're playing Raiden, like it's go time,
Yeah.
right? So,
Well, and their Lumina turns are pretty fire too. I mean, it gives the weapon an extra +1, so it's attacking for 4, which is a dirty
mhm,
number, because you don't want to block for 3 and then an equipment, or like that's the only thing you can do to make it so it doesn't hit, so it doesn't do that thing where it takes a card off the top of the deck and
mhm,
charge it in the soul. But what's crazy is it gives an extra attack, so you attack twice with 0 cost each time. It seems
mhm.
pretty ridiculous. I mean, do you ever have issues with Bolton where you have a really good combo in your hand, you just don't have the soul to do it? Like,
Yeah, I mean, since and that I think you nailed it. I think that's the disadvantage of the Raiden build is it's not even necessarily about soul. If you haven't charged, Raiden is zero. Doesn't matter if you have four cards in your hand or not, right? So you that's why I say you have to count those charge cards, specifically the V's and the take flights. Um, but and also remember that V can't combine with Lumina, right? You can't V into a Lumina because then it takes the because V is only good for the chain link
Oh
and
yeah.
Lumina breaks the chain link, right? So
Oh, I didn't know that. Lumina breaks the chain link and it's every card after that.
yeah, so Lumina says till end of turn. So Lumina will give the weapons until end of turn, but Via the Vanguard says, V's like +1 for every card you put in your soul for this chain link, not for turn.
Oh, that's good to know.
So yeah, you can't V into Lumina because Lumina kills it. So then your Raiden swings after Lumina wouldn't get the V bonus. So that's why most people bolt courage, pop their Snapdragons, and then go into their Lumina. Is because then you get your charge at the lowest least cost. You don't even care about your charge card. You're just trying to get it up.
So when they do the V of the Vanguard, then you can only play attack action cards from that point on, or
Or
your
swing.
weapon,
I
or
mean,
your swing. Yeah,
usually what they're
that's
gonna
good to
do
know
is
because
they're
I didn't
gonna
know that.
they're gonna V, which will cost one, so they have to pitch something,
Hmm.
and they're either going to um, oh, well, you'll know beforehand because Dusk Path also will break the chain. So if they'll go Dusk Path into V, and then you have two swings coming.
Mm.
Or they'll do V into like a Battlefield Blitz or a Valiant Thrust or something like that into a Raiden.
Could you play that one a non-attack action card first and then play a V the Vanguard? But I mean, you'd need so many cards to
Yeah,
do
and
that.
that's what I'm saying. Dusk you would play before V, but Lumina you can't play before V because Lumina only gives its I think it only gives I forget which one, but one it gives Lumina gives +1 and lets you attack again, and you have to have charged to get one of them, and I think it's attack twice,
Oh, I
so you have
see.
to have already
You
charged.
have to already charge, so that's pretty
Yeah.
impossible to do. I feel you. Because the thing that I've noticed against V the Vanguard, I think that's something you could snag as a Bravo player. I'm trying to figure
Hmm.
out, and this is pretty late in the video, so hopefully nobody uses this against me. But I think snagging that is really important because when you do the V the Vanguard, you usually charge like 2 to 3 cards, at least
Hmm.
probably two.
Two usually, yeah.
Yeah, because like then my plan is snagging, but you can always do the boots, right, to give it go again, which I'm
Mhm.
fine with. But it's kind of cool
Well,
that it could like
it
prevent the
it
go
has
again.
go again.
Oh, it does.
Oh, no, no, V does not. You're right. You're right. V
Yeah.
does not have go again. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Good. Good.
yeah, yeah. You're right. You're right. You're right.
I'll have to double check the card tonight. But
No,
yeah, that's
it does not. You're right. You
yeah,
have to use its own pitch to do it. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I was like, ha ha ha. Now I have a strategy against it, but I don't know. It's a tough deck to go against. Um, I think I want to ask one more thing with a competitive play, right?
Hmm.
When I've been playing, time is usually tough. How do you handle when you think the game is going too slow when it's going to a draw? Because in these big events, draws suck. Like you do not.
Hmm.
If you get a draw, you're probably not getting in the top 8. Like what do you do with like playing and it's going slow and all that kind of stuff?
I don't know what to tell you, especially as you as a Bravo player. I don't
Yeah,
really know because you're generally. I mean, aside from somebody individually being slow, you being Bravo. You're usually the reason the game's going long.
yeah,
So. Uh, I mean, all you can really do is try to hit the gas, which is take one to the face and try to come back. Because I assume you're playing some crushes and stuff, and I assume you're playing some of your crush effects, so try and swing for 9 or something. I mean, that's about all you can do is kind of, if you're gonna lose anyway, and actually with the way Fab works, as you know, it's better to lose.
yeah.
So you may as well just kind of YOLO, and I, I don't know what to tell you there. I mean,
Yeah, no, no, that's true. No, because from a couple months ago, I think I was thinking, why don't we have like a chess clock? I think that would be kind of a cool thing to implement. I mean, maybe that's over the top, but I'm just saying that like with Bravo, especially, even though I'm the reason why the game's going long, usually my turns are so simple. I'm
mhm.
swinging with a hammer, for 4 or 6, and then on an occasion I'll use a crippling crush and try to get some cards out of your hand and do something fancy. But what do you think of the chess clock idea? Like basically, when you pass priority, you hit the thing.
Yeah, I think most games I've played that have been on timer, somebody's proposed that in
Hmm.
some form or the other. And nobody's really done it. So there's got to be some overarching reason for that. I will say I think it'd be annoying to have to sit there and do it,
That's
especially
true.
because like as much as you go back and forth in Fab, it's like, all right, attack window or attack, defend window,
Yeah.
right? No, attack reactions. Oh, I forgot to. Oh, I
Yeah,
forgot
I
the
forgot
attack
to.
react step. Oh, right. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, so
and
I
then
think
people are
that could be a
fiddling
hot
with it.
mess.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe at like uber competitive, it could work, but then you're changing the format at uber competitive. So yeah, but certainly at casual level, and I don't mean like even at like the armory level, like I wouldn't want to do that.
Oh yeah, armory events, I don't think is no big deal. And like you were
Right.
saying before, another hot topic that I've heard around the community is when people want to take something back. If they pitched wrong or they blocked wrong, and they're like, "Oh wait, can I switch this out?" I am in the same boat as you. I think what you said earlier is when you're going to armory events, I don't care. You can do whatever you want, you know. But when it's road to nationals, then it's kind of more of a bigger deal because you're kind of playing at a competitive level.
Yeah, I mean, and just to clarify for those out there watching, if it's
They're gonna
something that
hold you to
changes the
this.
game, like if they're like, "Oh, I should have blocked three," I'm not going to let them take that back, right? And
Yeah,
most people won't ask for that back. But your example earlier of like, "Oh crap, I forgot to shackle,"
yeah,
right? I mean, how often have like, "Oh no, I meant to shackle," and you're like, "I know you were going to shackle, you're
yeah.
fine,"
You do
right?
it every
Like,
turn. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that's more what I meant. It's not like oh, if you didn't set your hand up right, which means you didn't defend the turn before, that's on you, bro. But like,
Yeah,
if you miss a trigger or something, I don't care.
yeah.
You know. So.
I heard in the last Road to Nationals or the first one I went into, one of the judge call questions that was tough is someone flipped their armor over right as
Mhm.
dash and they were like, oh no, I forgot to bring my item out the go again item and
Oh, the chamber, induction
yeah,
chamber.
induction chair, and they had the judge come over, and nobody drew or anything, and the judge was like, "Yeah, just get out of your deck." But that would have sucked. Can you imagine? Like, and I bet like in a world tournament, like there is a certain time period where you have to get the induction chamber out of your deck and
Mhm.
put it into play. I mean, it's gonna be
I,
interesting. And,
I imagine that happens a lot. Where I mean, I was sitting next to somebody two armories ago, and he's like, he told his opponent, he's like, "Hey, by the way, make sure you go get your chamber." And they're like,
yeah,
"Oh yeah," and they got to do it again, right? So I'm sure that happens. Another one that happens a lot that I've gotten judge calls about is someone will accidentally draw too many cards. It happens all the time in this game, right? Because you're
yeah.
so used to drawing four and you forget you have one left for whatever reason. The official rule, I don't know if everybody knows, the official rule is that you show the card to both players and the opponent gets to choose whether it goes on the top or bottom of your deck. So that was something I learned because what I used to do is I just say, okay, you saw what it was, show it to your opponent,
Hmm.
put it on the top of your deck face up so that everybody has the same public knowledge, and let's move on, right? And then, if you have to, you can issue the warning or whatever because you're supposed to by the rules, and that's fine. But it's actually your opponent actually gets to choose whether it goes on top or bottom, which is so there's actually a pretty big penalty there,
Oh
right?
yeah. And I think
Like
if
that
you
could be the Vanguard or whatever. So
Oh yeah, and if you're a repeat offender, I think what happens is they lower your intelligence by two for two turns, and
that's true.
that's what a judge told me. Because I will admit I am one of those players who used to do that, but
Hmm.
when I got that called against me and I heard about that, I got a lot better. And you know what I do is instead of picking it up on the top of my deck, I pick my whole deck up and then I draw down. And what I do too is I have my this really is really important too is I have the card if I have a card in hand I'll put it sideways and then any card that I take from the top of my deck I'll put it like or this way so I know which ones I drew from the top and if I drew an extra one I can just put it right back on top. But that
Hmm.
is a really bad tough one that I've have overcome. But even though these little things are annoying and you get penalties or something, it's really important to learn, especially when we get into these calling events, man, because that they're gonna, people are gonna take the penalties there.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just said pick up your deck. I'd be careful about picking up your deck at higher level
Oh,
events.
really? Is that not good?
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's against the rules, but somebody could very easily be like, "Hey, he picked up his deck, and I'm not sure if he moved some cards." Judge,
Oh,
right? And then it's a he said, they said type of deal, right? So
oh, that's a
just be
good
careful
point.
there.
Like,
Yeah.
how are there any other methods for drawing cards? Because I have like the worst fingers in the world. I'll just like, you know.
I mean, your one by one method, I think, is the right way to do it, especially if you're on camera, because you don't want, like, we've seen what's happened there, right? So like, make sure you're taking them off. Now, and to be fair, in this game, you have to pick up your deck basically every turn to
Hmm.
put your pitch cards on the bottom to some
That's
extent,
true.
right? It's just I would, if there's no reason to be picking up your deck, especially at these high level tournaments where people are looking for anything they can to get in your head, don't do it, man. Like,
Yeah, that's a good point. I have to figure out
yeah.
another drawing method, maybe just like carefully do one by one or something. Because I mean, that's a good point. I've seen a couple of videos where people cheat and they like stack their deck and they
Hmm.
shuffle and do this thing, and it's scary. I mean that, and when you're in the moment, you're just talking to be like, "Oh, Andrew, we're just talking like regular people." Or one person might say, "Oh, what does this card do?" And then as that other person, the opponent's explaining, the cheater will like do something with their deck when they're not looking at it. So it's pretty scary. And to your
Hmm.
point, if I'm doing that, yeah, somebody might try to get in my head and say, "Hey, what are you doing there? You shouldn't touch your deck like that." I'll have to look at
Yeah.
the official rules. But yeah, man, it's gonna be cool. I can't wait to compete in these big events because I don't know, like, did you compete in like Star Wars Destiny stuff or any other big events? I sure haven't.
I went to regionals. I was going to go to Worlds, but that was canceled for COVID. So I
Mm.
mean, I didn't make it to there. But yeah, I've done pretty well. I'm like a perpetual like I do well in Swiss, and then as soon as I go to Top Cut, I like belly flop. Like
Yeah, I'm the same.
that's like my mo, right? So
Yeah.
um, yeah,
I
but
can't wait to do draft. And have you ever done the sealed to draft format where it's sealed in Swiss and then draft in top eight? That is such a cool
yeah,
method.
haven't done that. I know they do it at the higher level events. So we'll see how that goes. If I can make it to Vegas, I guess that'll be the first shot.
Yeah, they did it in pre-release weekend, and I loved it. But yeah, man, Andrew, thanks so much for talking with me
Yeah,
today,
man.
and I really appreciate you doing this drinking with Bronson thing with me. I really like your channel. It's cool what you're doing. You wanna end it off and plug your channel, plug what you're doing, what you want for the future?
Absolutely. Well, it makes me happy that you're enjoying it because that's what we do. That's what I do. I put a lot of work into it, as I know you put into yours as well. So yeah, I'm Dice Commando. We're over at youtube.com/Dice Commando. We've actually got the URL thing, so you can
I'll
type
put a
that in,
link
but you can also
below.
just find me on Dice Commando. I cover Star Wars Destiny. I cover Flesh and Blood. Those are my two main games. I play, you can see it behind me. I play Star Wars Legion as well. That's kind of like my personal thing that I just put up whenever I feel like talking about it. And sometimes we just talk game theory, like when we had this man on. I might have pointed the wrong way. Just like when we had this man on last Friday. So again, this was awesome. I know I was looking forward to this all week actually. So thanks for having me
Oh,
on.
thanks,
Appreciate
man.
it.
Yeah, me too.